Negotiations on a new deal for Britain in Europe are in full swing. George Osborne, the Chancellor, has been visiting European capitals. But Janan Ganesh, you argue that the talk of a quick deal, an early deal for Britain in Europe could be dangerous for David Cameron. Why?
I think it could be fatal to his authority as Prime Minister. The most interesting thing that will happen during David Cameron's premiership is this referendum. Once it's over, I think all of Westminster will start saying, well, the central moment of your time in government is over. A lot of conservative Eurosceptics will be angry if the country has voted to stay in, and David Cameron has encouraged them to stay in. And you'll see his authority dwindle, I think, pretty much immediately.
So what kind of timetable are we talking about? Maybe next year? There's even talk about a referendum in the summer of next year, 2016. Is that possible?
Well, David Cameron's own legislation allows him to delay until December the 31st, 2017. And yet there's incessant talk of him going much earlier than that. And over the weekend, specific speculation about next summer, 2016, only a year after being re-elected Prime Minister. If I'm right that the day after the referendum his authority begins to decline, then that means he has one good year as a Conservative-only Prime Minister and then immediately begins fighting off these challenges to his position. And I can't see the logic in choosing to put yourself in danger that early in a parliament.
Let's just talk about the deal itself. Is it possible to reach the terms of a new deal for Britain by the spring of next year?
I think Britain can negotiate enough to keep the public happy and make them grudgingly vote to stay in the European Union. And that might be something to do with access to welfare benefits by European migrants coming to these shores, and maybe some protections for non-Euro countries in the voting institutions of the European Union. I don't think David Cameron can negotiate something that will please, say, a quarter to a third of his party, who are the most strident Eurosceptics. They want something pretty spectacular, which I don't think is on the table.
Now, let's come back to David Cameron. During the election campaign, he, in his kitchen, rather unwittingly revealed that he had no intention, or he didn't wish or intend to serve out a full second term. That was a bit of a mistake, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was a mistake in that it made explicit something that everyone suspected, but wasn't official. I think people expected he wouldn't contest the 2020 election. 3 general elections is quite a lot to...
Yeah, I mean, he took over in 2005 as party leader, so he's done 10 years in the top seat already.
Yeah, it'll be 15 by the next election. He's already contested 2 elections. But when he said that, he did intend that his date of departure would be closer to 2020, maybe a year or 2 before the election, than now. And my arguments about the referendum is that if it happens early, I think he could be gone reluctantly, against his wishes, within 6 months or a year of that referendum. And so he only ends up serving another 2 years as Prime Minister, when in fact he has all the political momentum and all the weakness against him in the Labour opposition to actually serve out much longer than that.
And is there any sense of people manoeuvring now in the succession race? I mean, George Osborne's got a sharp haircut. He's obviously accumulated a lot more power since the election, Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah, George Osborne is seen as, along with Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London and new MP for Uxbridge, the 2 principal candidates, maybe Theresa May as well, the Home Secretary. There's no aggressive manoeuvring at the moment, but as soon as David Cameron shows any signs of weakness, and my argument is that he will on the day after the referendum, inevitably, then you can begin to imagine some of that manoeuvring taking place. It's less likely to come from George Osborne because they're allies and friends, but at least from 1 or 2 other sources, I think there'll be the first intimations of a leadership push.
And obviously if he loses the referendum, it's over David Cameron.
Yes, I mean, if you campaign to stay in the European Union on a big existential question and the public go the other way, the humiliation is unsurvivable politically.
Last question. Does David Cameron still have the appetite to be Prime Minister?
I think he does. And if he were to leave early, it would be not through any will of his own, but the sheer mistake of calling the referendum early.
Janan Ganesh, thank you so much.
Thank you.